For the last few weeks, we've been talking a lot about the overwhelming number of people that are coming into the Orthodox faith in the last few years. And that's really a tremendous blessing. And it seems like this year it's almost reached a fever pitch during the last Holy Week and Pascha. If anybody spends any time online, do a general perusal of church social media pages, and you will see scores of new Orthodox Christians entering into the Church of Christ, especially here in North America. And honestly, that is really a great cause for joy and for hope for the future. Now, coupled with that, we've also discussed in the past the issue of what we might call online orthodoxy, and that has some problems, right? When people learn about the Orthodox faith, especially in our culture, in our modern society, they are going to find that information first online. And as we said before, if someone's getting their information from trusted teachers, from reputable sources, that's great. But the Orthodox faith is truly incarnational. That is, it requires us to get away from our computers and into our parishes. And the initial phase is everybody comes to the parish to be baptized, to be chrismated. And when we join our parish, we have to remain deeply committed to gathering together. That is really an important aspect of the Orthodox faith. But what inevitably happens, and this always happens, it happens no matter what, there is a kind of waning enthusiasm after a few years. It's kind of a natural human cycle. Once that newness wears off, our zeal may lessen, and that happens. Maybe our attendance starts to suffer. And so the question is, how do we take our new faith, or even if we've been Orthodox Christian all of our life, how do we deepen our faith by growing into the church? That is, not simply believing the doctrines, but actually practicing the Orthodox faith by joining ourselves to the community, keep coming as a member of the body of Christ. How do we avoid the pitfalls of waning enthusiasm and become deeply committed Orthodox Christians, connected to the community and not simply connected to an ideology? So joining us tonight to discuss this topic is Father Alexander Koranda. Father Alexander is the Dean of the historic Holy Trinity Cathedral of the Orthodox Church in America in Chicago, Illinois, where for many decades that cathedral housed the renowned Tikvin icon of the Mother of God before it was returned to Russia. He is also the Director of Communications for the Diocese of the Midwest. Father Alexander, welcome to Ancient Faith Today, and Christ is risen.
Indeed, he's risen. Good evening, Father.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you, and I'm looking forward to our discussion tonight. Like I said, I know that you've been bringing new people into the church, new souls into the church, and that's really an important aspect of our faith. But the question is, how do we keep people, right? How do we keep them engaged in the church? We have so many people. When you read online, they're claiming to be Orthodox. And I'm not saying that they're not, but what I'm worried about is that sometimes they think they are simply joining an ideology and not this kind of deeply experiential faith that is so integral to Orthodox Christianity. So, Father, I want to start by getting to know you a little bit. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and your upbringing and how you came to the priesthood?
Sure, Father. Well, thank you for having me on. My story is, what I consider to be quite a blessing and has brought me to where I am today. Certainly, my family, both sides, Orthodox, raised in an Orthodox household, and they had a lot of piety, especially amongst my grandfathers and my grandparents in the household, but especially in my grandfather John Sutko, who was a choir director and very
Indeed.
dedicated and well known in the area, and actually did a
Yes,
lot of work with translations into English and arrangements for the church. Was kind of a pioneer for that here in America, and
absolutely.
so a very deep piety and devotion to the church that was an inspiration to me. And so, simply through his invitation of inviting me to come with him to services, I you know began to grow my love for the church. It's something that was always with
Wow.
me. Like, people often ask, "Oh, well, when did you decide to become a priest, or when did that hit you?" And I really never had a moment. Since I was very young, 3 years old or so. Walking around carrying icons and carrying a soup ladle as my censer. So that's all I ever knew, and that's all I ever wanted to know. And so, but good examples around me, good mentors, and
Yes.
so grew up in the church that way, and that's a bit of my story, with my family and in my upbringing, and eventually I went
Mhm.
on to do my studies, and then to do my studies at seminary with my master's of divinity, and then calling to the diaconate and then the priesthood, with my first assignment being here at the Holy Trinity Cathedral.
Speaking of your dad, I have wonderful, wonderful memories. I'm sorry, of your grandfather. I have wonderful, wonderful memories of your grandfather. He had the most amazing, booming bass voice. He was
Oh,
quite
without a doubt, yes.
renowned for it. Yeah. And there is a video. The name, it just kind of came to my head right now. There's a video that was done. It was sort of like a commentary on the Divine Liturgy, right? Do you remember the name of
Yes.
that video?
I do, because that happened to be my master thesis project, graduating
Really?
seminary. It was, yes. So, my love for the liturgy and liturgics, I wanted to do something that, the video's Fountain of Immortality, but, so I wanted to do
Yes.
something that we could, pass on to people, inquirers, which I do all the time. I send them the URL for that. But yeah, putting
I
that
love it.
together, I said, I said, who should? Oh, geez, I know exactly who the narrator should be. So I got my grandfather. And now, blessed memory. It's a great tribute to his love for the church, but a nice memory for me hearing his voice, still teaching me about the liturgy.
Yes, it is. It is both a video of tremendous substance, but it's also very inspiring to hear his just magnificent voice. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the link to that in our Facebook and YouTube stream right now. If people want to go listen to it after the show, we would love to have them hear that, because it's really amazing. All right.
Right.
So, Father, tell us a little bit about the activity that you are seeing in your cathedral. I assume, and I've looked at some pictures from your cathedral. You're having people come into the church. Tell us a little bit about the who and the what of that. What kind of people are showing interest in the Orthodox faith in your experience and in the experience of your colleagues?
Yeah, we're certainly seeing, I think, like everywhere, you mentioned that in the introduction to this program, of a boom that everyone's kind of experiencing. And certainly we're seeing this in Chicago, here in the metropolitan area. Um, and who are we seeing? Really all types of people, from various backgrounds, truly. But particularly in my parish, we're seeing a lot of young men in their early to mid 20s, that they're seeking a deeper meaning to life. That have kind of grew up in much more secular, worldly sense, and found a lot of emptiness in that, lack of meaning, a lack of direction, a lack of purpose, and are kind of running into orthodoxy online, through various means and avenues. A lot of it even sometimes just through philosophical debates and arguments through various online talking heads, and eventually winding up, in front of some Orthodox content or the fathers, and
Yeah.
finding themselves, investigating the Orthodox Church.
Yeah, indeed. And so let's talk a little bit about the demographics, though. I know that you said that people are rejecting a kind of secular worldview or a secular lifestyle. Are you
Mhm.
seeing young people? Are you seeing older people? People from any kind of previous religious background? Who are you seeing?
Really a mix. I mean, again, I would say certainly at my parish, it's been a lot more younger men who have been coming to the parish, but who really seem to be more active online, so they're finding orthodoxy that way. But certainly, we've had women that have come into the church. Some who are coming from maybe more of a Catholic background, where they're seeing certain changes in the church that they're not liking and looking for something a little more stable.
Mhm.
But then other people,
Mhm.
again, just kind of from a secular background, not practicing any religion or having really anything guide them. Some not even being baptized or familiar with religion at all in their past, or if so, just very loosely or by name. So nothing, not being brought up in a pious household, for example, or really being guided by that as they
Right.
were growing up.
Honestly, I find that part of it fascinating because in the 1980s, I can remember when this first wave of former evangelicals were coming into the church, and
Hmm.
Father Peter Gilchrist and so forth.
Yes,
And then, of course, he wrote that book, Becoming Orthodox. And that
that's right.
really ushered in a massive wave of people. But those people were, as you said, they kind of had a religious background. They were deeply committed to Christ. They were looking for the historic uh, understanding of Christianity. They find the Orthodox faith, and they had a kind of a very circuitous but beautiful route into Orthodoxy. Agreed. What we're seeing today is much different, and that is people that often have no religious background or a kind of sketchy religious background.
Hmm.
Many, in my 23 years as a priest, it's just really been within like the last 5 or so years that I've been seeing, thank God, people that were either nominal atheists, that is, that they just had
Hmm.
no religious upbringing, or they were really committed, avowed atheists, as almost apologists for atheism, arguing online and so forth. And then they come to the Orthodox faith. So I find this really, really a kind of pivotal moment in the history of certainly the Orthodox Church in the West, in terms
Hmm.
of bringing people into the church. So, with that, once people are coming to you, and let's remind our listeners, we would love to hear from you. Give us a call at 1-855-AF Radio. Maybe you've just come into the church in the past few weeks through the Paschal services. We would love to hear from you. What is your experience? Or maybe you came in, let's say, 1 to 2 years ago. What is your feeling right now? What are you experiencing? Are you experiencing the same kind of zeal that you did, or, and you don't have to give your name, is it waning a little bit? Are you feeling a little bit of a kind of reality check, right? Because I think a lot of people go through that. And so it's very natural. So let's talk about that. 1-855-AF Radio, or send us a text message. We're ready to read that online. 412-206-5012. So, Father Alexander, when you are bringing people into the church, what is your typical catechetical procedure? Do you have materials that you typically use? Do you personally work with them? Do they do readings? How do you actually go about that?
Well, I think one of the most important things that we offer as the church is again in your intro about this incarnational kind of existence, this reality that we enter the church. One of the greatest gifts that we give people in the church is and that we're given is this entrance into reality, into the reality of life itself. And so, when people come into the church, my big emphasis is the liturgical life of the church. Certainly being the cathedral, we have a very healthy liturgical life. But nevertheless, that is my main focus and emphasis. When people are coming to the church nowadays, it, people are coming with tons of knowledge. I mean, there's very rarely that I don't even know, maybe once or twice I've met with someone who has come to the church, or I've sat down with, that was, tell me about Orthodox. They don't know about it. I mean, people have read books, they've done tons of research online, and the time they're getting to the door of the church, they're already making some kind of commitment. So part of the problem sometimes, I think, is they have too much knowledge, and this
Right.
becomes kind of burdensome to them, or even really difficult for the catechumen, the process. But my main focus is certainly the services. Certainly, we go through a catechisms. There's kind of the standard recommendations for readings. But then also just meeting with them individually as well, talking about prayer life, talking about how the adjustments are going, their experiences in the services and the community life, and kind of again that reality, what that's looking like and how that feels.
That's really helpful. I'm curious if you want to be uh, honest about it. If you don't want to discuss this, it's fine. Do you ever have a situation where, because I think many of us priests have had this, where it kind of doesn't work out, and someone wants to be Orthodox and they come with pretty good intentions, but for one reason or another, maybe things don't work out. Their interest seems to wane, and now they're thinking like, well, maybe this isn't for me. Have you been through that situation yet?
Certainly, there's, like you said, I think it's common. People are coming in with heavy burdens, and sometimes with kind of false ideology of what it is to be in the church, what that looks like. I believe it's Father Thomas Hopko that I often use this quote from. But we don't come to the church to change the church, but we come to the church to be changed by the church.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
this is really an important aspect. And so certainly, yeah, people are turned off by the church all the time, or have kind of romantic ideas, or want to go at a certain pace. And that's just not it. It's God's time, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done on one's heart and one's soul as they're coming into the church, to reframe that mindset. We're talking about acquiring the mind of Christ, right? I mean, that doesn't happen just by this kind of reading a lot of books or knowing the things. I mean, it comes through a very genuine experience of the church, being in the presence of God, and letting the text, the hymnography of the services wash over your soul. And so
Mm.
this is it's an elaborate process, and it takes time, it takes patience, and most importantly, prayer.
You had mentioned that you have a lot of different people that come, but I know you do a lot of work with young people, with college age people. What would you say is the main kind of burden that young people bring when they come to the church? And I mean, not just necessarily people that are looking to embrace the Orthodox faith, but young people that maybe have grown up in the church. What would you say are the main concerns or the main burdens that young people, let's say from ages 18 to 30? What's on their mind? What are the things that they're really concerned about in relation to their Christian faith?
Well, first, I hope it is their Christian faith that they're worried about. This is important. I think they think too much. I think that's the biggest burden that they bring.
Mm,
Is this constant concern and worry, and this lack of faith and trust in God and His providence. But there's
mm,
this constant burden of trying to be at a certain level in life, or have certain credentials, or
right.
be at a certain status, and there's all this kind of pressure. But in the meantime, it's like, okay, well, I also want to be with God or be religious, or that's important too. But they kind of leave Him on the side and then try to figure all these things out, without Him, and even being spiritual. And so it seems like just the kind of thinking too much, and not developing, again, a sense of prayer and incorporation of God's will in one's life. And there becomes a worry, there becomes this pressure, there becomes this constant kind of just kind of swimming, and
Hmm.
treading, and not really going in a direction. But it just seems like there's then a lot of worry sets in, and then they're unhappy, and then even depression sinks in too, of not being at a certain place that they think they should be, whether it be spiritually or just within life itself. And so this seems to
Right.
be, occupy the mind, and this just seems
Yeah.
to be a really big anchor.
Yeah, we've seen this a lot, right? We've seen this rise of depression and anxiety among young adults today. It's really almost a sort of chronic problem, growing all the time. What it is interesting. I want to go back to one thing that you said because it really goes directly to the topic: growing into the church. Now, you had mentioned about the services of the church, and I looked on your calendar. There are days when you have even the hours in Typica at 6:30 in the morning. And I'm just curious, are you getting people that are coming to these early services to come and pray in the church?
Yes, no, we certainly do. It's a morning
I love
crowd,
it.
before
I
work,
love it.
before classes, and it's nice. We have hours in Typica. It's maybe about a half an hour or so, but then there's a group
Yeah,
of us
yeah.
they'll often walk over and get coffee, before everyone heads off for the day
Right,
for some
right.
discussion. So, so it's a small group, but it's nice, and the people that do come, really do find it helpful to start their day off that way. But a lot of it's just it's asceticism for me, waking up early and getting over to the church and opening the doors, so I like pushing myself in
Right.
that way. But no, we certainly get some people, and again, it's been a nice little kind of morning crew, then we go for our coffee, so another way to kind of build community. But even, we're the
Perfect.
first ones at the coffee shop, so they all know us well, and people know our group there, so another small witness, you can say, perhaps, in the city of Chicago.
Now, I love it. I love it. Honestly, I have to tell you, that really spoke to me. In our community, we've done that for about 5 years now, where we have matins on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Now, we're not quite as early as you Chicago early risers. We're at 9 a.m., but we get a nice crew there. We actually have people because people are working online now. So we actually have a small crew, but I think it's growing, where young people are bringing their laptops to church. So we'll have matins at 9. That lasts about 45 minutes or so. And then we go next door to the educational building and we do the same thing. We have coffee or we have breakfast, and they break out their laptops and they start working. And
Yeah.
we're there until 12 o'clock. And it is doing exactly that. I think, again, speaking to the topic of growing into the church, ultimately, what I guess the point that I'm trying to get at, and tell me if I'm wrong, is that all of the didactic information, right? all of this, sort of like there's a lot of energy being put into apologetics online. But honestly, that only takes you so far. You can watch every apologist, every Orthodox content provider. Now, some of them I really don't recommend. Some of them are doing a very good job. But learning, arguing, growing, this is not ultimately the experience of our faith. The experience of our faith happens in the church. It happens in the parish, not online. It's almost like you have to grow up, and out of the online experience to just talk, listen, go in the comment box and say, oh yeah, he won that debate, and get into the parish. Are you seeing that realization of people that are cutting their teeth online, but then coming into the church and saying, this is where the real life is?
Without a doubt, people, like I said, people come to the church and in most cases be catechized in so many ways, good, bad, whatever. I don't really worry about that so much because that's not my concern. My concern is now integrating them into the body of Christ and giving them that real experience. And what I have found and noticed is that, people who have been really attached to, different podcasts, different lectures, different sources online, they start to drift away from that as they're given the reality of the church. You saw my schedule. We have a busy schedule. Well,
Yes.
you can't be messing around online when, we've got work to do here, when you've got responsibilities here, and so it's just, but people adjust to that, quickly, and once they get that taste of life and community and the beauty of life in the church, but also the struggle. It's hard to be in the church. It's hard to be in the church, and it's hard work. But that's something too that that is also a beautiful thing, or something that pulls people in as well. Is it's something real? It's something I have to work on. It's something I have to develop. It's not just something I could kind of plug into, plug out. Go into these kind of echo chambers and team up. It's a real battle. It's a real situation we're going into. But there's really there's a good development that takes place. But you bring them into that reality, and and they have a choice to make. To be a part of this community, the church, or to continue to kind of wander.
So, Father, what we're going to do is we're going to take a very, very short break. We want all our listeners, just stay tuned. Don't go away. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk to Father Alexander about some of that hard work that he discusses. How do we grow into the church? All of you converts that are coming into the church, send us a text message, give us a call. We would love to hear from you. Even maybe if you are having a developing understanding of, I need to get more involved with my community and less just about online activity. We would love to hear from you. Give us a call at 1-855-AF-RADIO or send us a text to 412-206-5012. You are listening to Ancient Faith Today. We're with Father Alexander Koranda, and we will be right back.
Father Tom will be back in a moment. In the meantime, the lines are open at 855-237-2346. Don't go away.
Hi, do you know me? I'm Father Stephen DeYoung. My new book, Apocrypha, An Introduction to Extra-Biblical Literature, is now available. A lot of Christians today divide ancient Jewish and Christian literature into two categories: what's in the Bible, what's not in the Bible. Christian East, however, has traditionally had a third category, a middle category: books that are read privately in the home. The Greek word for that is Apocrypha. These texts from the centuries before and the centuries after the incarnation of Christ, that go beyond even the larger canons of Orthodox and Roman Catholic churches, reveal to us the religious world and theological framework of the apostles and early church fathers. In this book, Apocrypha, I survey these works, which connect elements of liturgy, scripture, iconography, patristic writings. Familiarity with these works will enhance readers' understanding of the breadth and depth of the Orthodox Christian faith. Buy your copy of Apocrypha, an introduction to extra-biblical literature at store.ancientfaith.com. That's store.ancientfaith.com.
We're back with Ancient Faith Today and Father Tom Soroka. Give us a call at 855-237-2346. Here once again is Father Tom.
Welcome back. We're talking with Father Alexander Koranda, and we're talking about growing into the church. What are the challenges once you've converted to kind of stick to it and grow as an Orthodox Christian and get away just from the sort of constant online activity? So, Father Alexander, let's delve into that a little bit. Let's unpack that. So you had used the phrase that there is hard work, right? So the work of conversion is, of course, assenting to the Orthodox faith. It is engaging and learning and in the Orthodox worship and the Orthodox prayers, starting to develop a spiritual life. What are some of these other things that someone has to do to grow into the church? What is this hard work that you talk about?
The hard work is the commitment, to our Savior, the focus on it, and making that, our life, the center of our life. There's many things, there's many choices we have throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month. And where is Christ in the midst of that? In a practical example that I often give my people or even people coming into the church of, okay, Father, what do you mean by a Christ-centered life? A Christ-centered life looks like, checking the church calendar to see if there's a service or a holy day. When it comes to eating a meal, the fasts, seeing someone in need, in whether it be through alms or for taking just some time to listen to them. It's being the eyes of Christ, the hands of Christ, and reorienting our whole life to point towards Him and making that our reality. Not just simply, kind of having nice thoughts, but something that's real, something that's sacrificial, something that's saying, no, I'm going to clear my schedule, or there's this other thing going on with friends, or this other thing that I really enjoy, but there's a service tonight, and I haven't been to church in a bit. I should really be there. This is part of my life. This is part of my growth, my healing. This is a necessity for me. And so I think really creating that discipline with Christ at the center of that, and rearranging our lives to serve Him in that way, but to realize that the responsibility, that we all take on through our baptism, to be faithful servants of Christ and to make Him the very center of our life.
Father, let me play devil's advocate here just for a moment. And I'm sure that I that I am trying to represent the loyal opposition who says, look, Father, I give to the church. I come, once a week if I can, but maybe I'm tired on Sunday. But all of these extra services, this is too much. I can give you one morning a week on Sunday morning, but beyond that, all this talk about vigil and feast days and all of these extra services, this seems kind of unnecessary. They don't have this in other churches. They don't have this, if you go and you make your obligation in a Catholic church, you go to Mass and that's it. Why do I have to go to these other services? Why is that so important to you in the way that you are telling me I need to grow into the church? What is it about coming to the services that is so important?
And my response would be also with the question, well, what else is there? What else are you going to do with your time? You know, we're going to be sitting on the couch. We're going to be watching our streaming services. We're going to be sitting on our phone scrolling. I mean, it's about sanctifying our time. It's because, entering into this reality. You give me nothing and coming to all of these services. I mean, this isn't for me, but what are you giving yourself? This opportunity that we have and that Christ has brought. I mean, this whole reality that we just went through in Holy Week and Pascha. I mean, this is so real of God's love for us and his desire to be united with us, his creation. Like, why would you forego that? Why would you not want to be engaging with that more? Certainly it's difficult. Maybe it's even somewhat of a foreign or abstract concept to us to some degrees, but that just kind of even shows us more that we have more to discover. We have more to grow. So in my brain always is like, well, what else are you gonna do? And why aren't you like? This is a great thing, and there's so much to learn and unpack. I mean, Father, you've been in the church, right, for forever. I mean, you've been decades as a priest, and I'm sure every single time you go through Lent and Pascha, you rediscover something else strikes your soul in such a profound way that has never done it before. And so that's it, but it shows how real our life in Christ is, and that there's more to learn. I mean, and that's what the kingdom of heaven is, right? This endless growth in God and his grace. But that starts now. And so, yes, I mean, you could be sitting there on the couch.
I think it's a really, really good point. That is, well, what else do you have to do? In other words, what is your priority here? Now, I want you to muse with me a little bit here, because I think, and just, help me through this thought. I think that sometimes we assume that people know what worship is about, why we're having these services, why are we going to commemorate, I don't know, the mid-feast or Ascension or, the myrrh bearers or whatever it is. And I think that sometimes people don't even know somehow how to worship. In other words, they have reduced the attendance at church to, I have to go to church, right? I have to stand there, instead of, I have to enter into that experience. So can you help me sort of through that? If I am an Orthodox Christian, I'm saying, well, like, what's the point? I know maybe according to you, I don't have anything better to do. Granted, okay, I'll give you that. But, like, what am I supposed to be doing there? Am I supposed to stand there? Am I supposed to listen, learn? What am I supposed to be doing at worship?
Yeah, no, that's the thing, right? People, I think, see the church or the services as a chore. They build themselves kind of against it in a lot of ways. And so sometimes this kind of, even asceticism of attending the services and their length at times, becomes somewhat kind of the enemy. And we build that against ourselves, and we make, our work and coming to the Lord, that much harder. But
I didn't mean to stump you.
No, I
don't sort of put you on the spot. On the spot.
No, yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking, it's like, this idea of like, yeah, we have this work to do, or we have to be doing something, or what should we be doing in church? And
right.
My kind of thought of that is like, well, why do you have to do anything? Just come and be. Just come and be.
Right.
People often, will come to vigil or other services and be so confused or thrown off, and And, they will, I don't understand it, or I got lost. And it's like, well, sure. Sometimes I feel that way too, but that's not the point. It's not that we have to do something or just be busy
Yeah.
at services, just being present at the Lord and being a disciple. It's coming into the presence of the Lord and letting him take over. And the more we could kind of let him do that, and this goes back to what we're talking about earlier with some of the big struggles that people have of coming into the church with kind of overthinking, even too much knowledge, or this thing of, I need to do these things to achieve this certain thing. So, well, that's not it. We have to be disciples. We have to come and learn from the master, how to be servants. So, well, what about myrrh-bearing women? What is all this? Well, listen to the gospel, listen to the hymnography. It teaches us the faithfulness, the dedication that we have. We have these great examples, these myrrh-bearing women, they weren't scholars. They weren't doing a bunch of things. No, they were just with Christ. They were part of his ministry. They were supporting it, but they were there. They were present. What were they doing at the foot of the cross? They were there. They were present, and it's like, so that's kind of where I'm always left with that kind of question, of this idea of like, well, let's do things. Well, I don't know. I think in so many ways, I even tell my people, especially in Chicago, just coming to church, carving out the time to come to church, sitting in traffic, that's an offering. Coming when you're tired, that's an offering. Standing there through the service, even if you don't feel it, that is an offering. Christ sees these things. Christ sees your effort, and he's there to bless you, to bring you into his glory, not to make things more difficult or to push you away. And so, we have to remember these aspects too, that we come with a very broken spirit, a humble and contrite heart, before the Lord. We don't come with this perfection or this kind of busyness, but actually we strive for the opposite, more of a stillness before the Lord,
That's actually, I really appreciate you saying that, because what I'm starting to hear from you is this idea of the sort of the preoccupation with online learning, online information gathering, right? That's really what is attracting people. And the Lord may be using that as a kind of like hook, right? So he's because he is fishing for men, he's using this as a kind of hook to bring people into the church. But once you're in the church, that idea of sort of constantly gathering information and processing and doesn't necessarily have to always be the paradigm for our experience of the church. Sometimes we can just be. I love that you said it that way. We can be at the services. We can allow the readings and the hymnography and the Psalms, the gospel readings, the scriptural readings to wash over us. And through that process, we will grow. How does that sound?
I love it. And that is the beauty of coming to church. Sure, there's a lot of obstacles, there's a lot of things that, temptations that come before us, and a lot of things we just put in our own mind and kind of build up. But the best part of church to me is just coming to be. Just being, I'm in a space where there aren't phones, screens, computers. No one's bothering me. I'm just with the Lord, and I'm hearing these beautiful salvific hymns, inspiring me to repentance, inspiring me to what God is calling me to be, and that's the beauty of church is being present in this most sacred, glorious temple, that just in the presence of the Lord, and I think sometimes it's important to, as simple that is, it's also very profound being in the presence of the Lord. And to me, this is one of the greatest parts, and this is why I've always loved the church, and this is why I've always loved the services, because you get to enter into reality, you get to enter into the kingdom, and just be. You don't have to have all the answers, you don't have to have all the great thoughts, you don't have to have all the things to do. But it's just about being, a child of God, with your Heavenly Father. I mean, what a beautiful experience.
I love it. 1-855-AF Radio. Give us a call. We'd love to hear from you, or send us a text message to 412-206-5012. So, Father Alexander, both you and I grew up in the church, and obviously we're dealing with a lot of different people in our parishes. We are dealing with lifelong Orthodox Christians. We're dealing with converts who have been in the church for a while, and we're dealing with new converts. What advice do you give to people that are starting to feel distant? And there's a couple of ways that this happens. I think number one, when people are deeply involved, let's say, in politics or the changes that are happening in society, the social changes, the upheaval, wars, whatever it is, right? All of this drama that's going around. Sometimes what happens is people will become disillusioned, and they will say, well, where is God in all of this? Like, what, why is this happening? Then the other part of it, and it was really sort of the genesis of this topic tonight about growing into the church, and that is, there is a natural waning that sometimes happens. It doesn't always happen, but it seems to be about 2 years in. And actually, you mentioned Father Hopko. Father Hopko used to say this also. He said that what the Lord Jesus Christ does is he shows you the beauty of the church, the richness of the theology, the depth of the history and the experience of the church. And you're overwhelmed by that. But then what happens is you come into the church, and that part of it becomes a little bit more commonplace. You begin to take for granted the beauty of the church. The sermons don't seem as wonderful as they once were. The choir doesn't seem as beautiful as it once were. The people don't seem as friendly as they once were, even though probably none of it has changed, right? So when people's faith wane, how do you encourage someone to kind of hold on, to keep going? What words of advice do you have to those people right now who have come into the church and are saying, like, yeah, but is that all there is? Like, how do I deepen my faith and recapture that once again?
Yeah. Well, as we hear in the one Theotokian, resurrectional Theotokian, courage, courage, O people of God. I really love that when we sing that, because we need courage and we need patience, during these times, because, this is commonplace with any relationship, our relationship with our Lord, with the church, but also within marriage, within dating, within friendships, within family. Things initially are even employment. Really, the list can go on. There's always that initial excitement about anything. It's new, it's captivating. This is where I want to go. This is my life. This is helpful and beneficial. And then, as you mentioned, things kind of become commonplace. And so, what is the value of the church, and what is the main goal?
Right.
That's salvation. The risk reward here is, it's very high. We really need to keep focused on that part, because it's not just a matter of, I'm bored, or, things aren't as exciting anymore. But also realizing that we're made for eternity, and that, we're only really down here for a couple minutes. I mean, and so that's something that I think is very important for us to stay focused on as Christians. This constant reminder of death. And we see that within the resurrection of Christ, this great joy and excitement we have, and kindling that Paschal joy, throughout our entire life. At the end of the last show, before your show came on, Father, that's what they were talking about, and Father was challenging his audience to do that, and it's very beautiful, but that is the challenge that we have. But what we have to remember is this kind of battle that we're in. It's a long and hard battle that we will be in till our last breath, and so, to have courage, but to also know that you're not alone. God is with us. This is first and foremost and so important, to stay connected with God through the holy mysteries, but also to engage in the community, be close with your priest,
Yes.
spend time for him,
Yes.
Go get coffee with him, go out to eat, have him over, spend time with people in the community. Do not isolate yourself. Continue to struggle with your brothers and sisters who, by the way, are also struggling. That's including your priest, but we can all do this together, in prayer. We're all tired. Our prayer is all very weak, but when we come together and when we're able to really assemble, and that's what makes the services so beautiful, is our prayer becomes so much stronger. We do find that courage in one another, and to stand up, and to continue the path. But, certainly it's a struggle. It is a fight, and there are forces pulling us away from this truth and this reality. And, but we have to stay strong, and we have to remember, certainly God is with us, but, that we're made for eternity. So, there's much work to do.
Those are really, really encouraging and good words, and very realistic, right? Like, we're all in this together. We are all in this
Absolutely.
fight together. So let's encourage one another. And again, I love your emphasis on community. I really think this is key here. The more that we can build community, the more that we can build love for one another, the more encouraging we will be, and the less prone we will be to fall away if we feel connected to the church.
Yeah. And I just to add one more comment on that too.
Yeah, please.
In all that, remember, we're not the first to struggle with this. We're not the first to go through these kind of hardships with faith or with prayer.
Good
I mean,
point.
read the lives of the saints. I mean, they all struggled with it. Everyone we're venerating, we're singing and asking for intercession. I mean, this was their battle as well. So, I mean, I think that's another reminder, because sometimes when we begin to isolate ourselves, we think, well, no one else is going through this, or I'm the only one to really experience it in this kind of way. And it's like, that's just not true, so but that should give you hope, that others have come through it, and, you will too.
Outstanding. Father Alexander Koranda, please keep up the good work. We know that you are doing great things at Holy Trinity Cathedral in Chicago, Illinois. It's a very famous architectural landmark, a very, very beautiful church, but also such a beautiful community there. So please, if you're in Chicago, please go visit the wonderful community of Holy Trinity Cathedral. Father Alexander,
Yes,
thanks for joining us this evening.
Absolutely, Father, and thank you for your ministry and presence online as well. So God bless you.
It's our honor. Thanks, Father. Before I share a few final thoughts, I want to offer my sincere thanks to Father Alexander Koranda for joining us tonight. Thanks to Matuszka Trudy for engineering the program, to our show production assistant, Melissa Graff, for her work behind the scenes, for everybody that's listening in, and for those who will be listening. Just, again, a word of encouragement. Stay connected to your community. Really, it is such a temptation sometimes when we feel alone, when we feel that the struggle is too much, when we maybe even disagree with something, to pull away. But really, that's when we need to grow closer to one another. This is how we grow into the church. This is how we become better, more resilient Christians is by going to church, is by going to the services, is by praying at home, is by entering into the fasting, is by joining with my brothers and sisters. Orthodox Christianity is not simply an online activity. If you want to use online activity to learn about the church, to expand your knowledge, great. But connect yourself to your parish. There is no Orthodox life outside of that local church. You need to be connected to it. You need to go there and get to know your brothers and sisters, get to love your priest and the clergy that are serving there, the parish councils, all of the people that sacrifice so much. Get involved in that parish, love those people, serve the people in your community, and you will find your faith growing deeply in the church and into Christ. And that's our show for tonight. Remember to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Ancient Faith Today. Share out our program after that's posted. Give us your feedback. Contact us with any ideas or topics that you might want to hear about.